Wait, let's unpack this. We are about to jump into a deep dive that I think fundamentally shifts how you think about modern conflict and national
It
defense.
really does.
For nearly a century, when we talked about military power, we were talking about conventional warfare,
Hmm.
measured in divisions, fighter wings, tons of displacement.
Physical assets?
Exactly. But if you look at the strategic blueprints being laid down by major powers today, that physical kinetic picture is wildly incomplete. I mean, you could even argue it's obsolete.
The core idea driving modern military thought and what we're seeing here is the recognition that the battlefield has become invisible. It's instant, and it's truly global.
And that brings us to our topic. We're talking about the complete pivot to digital warfare, and specifically the strategic evolution within Pakistan that led to its formal cyber command and its doctrine. And what makes this dive so crucial is that we aren't relying on hypotheticals. This conversation is grounded in some pretty significant strategic analyses, and it explicitly draws context from insights presented in sources discussing this transformation, including research related to the book, The Generals of Pakistan, by Mr. Zaheer Ahmad Meer.
And that work really provides the architectural blueprint for what we're analyzing today, which is Pakistan's comprehensive three-front cyber doctrine.
So our mission today is swift, but extremely thorough. We need to go beyond the surface level stuff to really understand the strategic, the technological, and the chronological journey of this military adaptation to cyberspace.
And we're going to extract the specific roles of key figures like the leader who established the Unified Cyber Command and the highly specific technologies that are underpinning this whole transition.
The single big picture nugget you should internalize right away is this. The fundamental power structure of global conflict has inverted. The central insight in this material is that strategic power now lies overwhelmingly in data.
It does. And this source material effectively charts the comprehensive transformation of what they actually term the unseen front line.
That's a great phrase.
It is, and it's a journey that moved from just, acknowledging a vague digital risk to constructing a comprehensive, multi-layered strategic defense and offense system, all designed for long-term digital superiority.
So to understand the future of conflict, you have to understand this foundational transformation.
Absolutely. It's about moving resources and institutional focus away from preparing for historical wars, wars of attrition and movement, to preparing for conflicts defined by algorithms, by connectivity, and by the rapid continuous manipulation of information.
So let's dive into that core argument presented in these analyses. Wars are no longer fought only with bullets. Power resides in data. I mean, we've all heard that phrase, data is the new oil. But what does it genuinely mean when a nation's most senior military leaders internalize this and then begin restructuring their entire defense philosophy around it?
Well, what's fascinating here is the sheer magnitude of this conceptual shift. It signals a proactive adaptation rather than just a reactive defense. The generals recognized that the next battle wouldn't be won or lost solely through physical kinetic assets.
Right.
The battle space expanded almost instantly to encompass this vast digital ecosystem. You have satellites controlling logistics, smartphones as vectors for psychological operations, sophisticated algorithms automating targeting, and then artificial intelligence driving decision-making.
So when you talk about controlling the data flow, you're essentially talking about controlling the nervous system of a modern state. And the sources seem to emphasize that this is actually more decisive than controlling traditional territorial boundaries.
Absolutely. Think about the strategic scale. Historically, a nation's defense budget would prioritize acquiring the latest tank or the latest fighter jet. These are heavy, expensive kinetic resources that degrade over time. The material emphasizes that the return on investment in digital assets, specifically something like deep penetrating malware or sophisticated signal interception tools, can be exponentially higher, and the cost of entry is significantly lower. Compared to a single modern fighter jet.
That's a powerful point. The whole economic equation of warfare changes entirely. If your most strategic asset is code, which is infinitely replicable and can be deployed in an instant, that must have caused some real turbulence in traditional military procurement offices. Did the analysis mention any of that? Any specific resistance or budgetary battles that characterize this seismic move from hardware to human capital?
The sources certainly highlight that this transition was institutionally challenging,
Mm.
shifting funding streams from tangible assets like large weapon systems produced by these established industrial complexes to intangible investments like specialized human capital, secure server infrastructure, and complex software R&D
Right.
that requires massive political will.
I can imagine.
The military leadership had to effectively argue that a skilled team of, say, 50 cyber specialists was a more critical asset than a new artillery battery. This struggle highlights that the conceptual shift wasn't just intellectual, it was a severe internal reallocation of strategic priorities and resources. A move away from signals and code.
So we're talking about a massive investment in coders and analysts and cyber defense specialists, human capital and infrastructure, like secure servers and proprietary data centers, over traditional defense hardware.
Indeed. And this move signifies that the integrity of national data and communication networks became recognized as a matter of immediate national survival, not just a support function.
Right.
The source material argues that if a nation's financial infrastructure or its energy grid can be paralyzed by a line of code executed thousands of miles away, well, the source of national power has already been neutralized, regardless of the size of the conventional military. The vulnerability is systemic.
And this emphasis on data also recognizes that war is now continuous. That's a crucial distinction. Digital infiltration, psychological manipulation, economic disruption, it all happens 247. It just blurs the lines between peace and conflict.
That's a crucial strategic observation. The data battlefield eliminates those clear boundaries between peace and war. Espionage is automated and constant, financial stability can be compromised instantly, and infrastructure can be mapped and penetrated long before any shots are fired.
So the defense has to be constant too.
Exactly. The strategic realization was that defense must also be automated, proactive, and layered a state of perpetual operational readiness against a pervasive, continuous threat landscape.
That sets the philosophical foundation perfectly. The military leadership saw that controlling information was synonymous with controlling power. Now, how did they start building the physical and the technical structure to support that philosophy?
The sources anchor the beginning of this practical adaptation in the early 2000s, and crucially, this period wasn't about building sophisticated offensive AI just yet. It was about laying the fundamental pillars necessary for digital resilience.
You can't launch complex offensive operations until you have a secure environment to launch them from.
Precisely.
So what were these specific foundational units and capabilities established during this crucial time? We're talking about the 3 pillars of defense.
That's right. The source material identifies 3 specific, non-negotiable pillars that define this initial phase. First, you have signals intelligence, or SIGINT. Second, secure communications. And third, electronic warfare units, or EW.
Okay, let's dedicate some time to breaking those down. Signals intelligence, SIGINT, that's essentially gathering information by intercepting signals, whether that's communication between people, which is COMMENT, or electronic transmissions between machines, ELINT. Why was this the absolute starting point?
SIGINT is the intelligence gathering apparatus of the digital domain. Its establishment was vital because, well, without it, you are blind. It provides situational awareness, knowing who is trying to communicate what, where, and how.
The eyes and ears.
The necessary eyes and ears of the digital fortress. In the early 2000s, this meant dedicating resources to sophisticated interception hardware and, more importantly, developing the human expertise needed to process and analyze massive amounts of intercepted electronic data. This gives you early warnings about potential digital infiltrations or adversary movements. It's about tracking the electromagnetic spectrum for hostile activity.
Okay, so the second pillar, secure communications, that speaks to internal resilience. I mean, if your command structure can't talk to itself without being monitored or disrupted, the whole system just collapses instantly. This must require extreme technological rigor.
Secure communications are the internal lifeblood, and the sources really highlight the difficulty of achieving this standard. These systems must ensure that military command and control, from strategic headquarters all the way down to the tactical unit, can transmit critical, time-sensitive information without any fear of eavesdropping, interception, or manipulation.
And that would mandate massive investment.
A huge investment in sophisticated, often proprietary encryption algorithms and dedicated, resilient fiber optic and radio networks entirely separate from any public infrastructure. Building this capability was a non-negotiable prerequisite for maintaining trust and operational integrity in a hostile digital environment.
So were they just buying commercial encryption solutions off the shelf, or does the source material suggest they were developing unique national encryption standards to ensure the integrity of their communications?
The strategic analysis suggests a move toward proprietary development, or at least highly customized commercial off-the-shelf solutions. And that's precisely because relying solely on externally developed encryption introduces unnecessary backdoors or vulnerabilities.
You can't trust it completely.
You can't. The core idea of secure communications in this context is trust. And the highest level of trust comes from controlling the entire encryption stack. That effort alone represents a significant long-term technical commitment.
And finally, electronic warfare units. Now, this sounds like the first layer of active defense, moving beyond simply listening and securing.
It is the operational defense element. Electronic warfare, or EW, focuses on controlling the electromagnetic spectrum, which is the medium through which all modern military systems communicate and sense.
Okay.
This includes capabilities like jamming enemy radar and communications, disrupting satellite links, confusing guidance systems, and essentially creating a kind of digital fog and noise where the adversary needs clarity. The early establishment of these units shows a clear intent to dominate the operational environment by denying the adversary the use of the spectrum.
So if SIGINT is the intelligence, secure comms is the internal network, and EW is the spectrum control, what was the overall purpose of establishing this foundation? What specific protective goals were they trying to achieve?
The sources are very clear on this. These three pillars were designed explicitly to counter propaganda, infiltration, and general cyber intrusions. They served as the initial reactive defense structure, providing the capability to see threats and survive the first wave of digital attacks.
Countering propaganda is fascinating in this early context. It suggests an immediate recognition that the digital battlefield isn't just about systems, it's about the information ecosystem and public trust.
Absolutely. Digital propaganda, often delivered through compromised social media platforms or targeted disinformation campaigns, can destabilize a nation internally just as effectively as a conventional attack.
So they saw that coming.
They did. Establishing early capabilities to monitor and counter this influx of digital disinformation was a profound recognition that the moral and political cohesion of the nation was now a strategic target, fully accessible via cyberspace. This required expertise not just in code, but in psychology and media analysis, all integrated within the military structure.
And regarding infiltration, that goes beyond simple hacking. Digital infiltration could mean planting malware, stealing highly sensitive national data, or inserting long-term backdoors for future systemic access.
Exactly. The foundational units of the early 2000s were tasked with creating resilient digital boundaries, layered firewalls, advanced intrusion detection systems, and strict monitoring protocols to identify and isolate malicious digital actors before they could achieve systemic damage.
Like compromising the national power grid or gaining access to weapons research.
Precisely. The emphasis here was on building depth and redundancy into the defensive posture.
So you can't build a fortress without strong foundations. This segment really shows that the earliest stage of Pakistan's digital transition was focused heavily on resilience and awareness, creating the ability to see and speak securely before attempting any grand strategic maneuvers. It was a move from an IT concern to a national security imperative.
And that leads us to the next phase, which is where things really accelerate. Now we move to a truly critical period, the Musharraf era. The source material suggests that under General Pervez Musharraf, digital warfare was escalated from a foundational, almost passive effort to a decisive, aggressive, strategic priority. This is where the commitment became undeniable.
So what distinguished this period from the early 2000s foundational work? Was it simply more money, or was there a fundamental shift in military philosophy?
The shift was primarily organizational and doctrinal. It cemented the philosophical change we were just discussing. If the foundational work built the tools, the Musharraf era formalized the doctrine and the institution to use those tools aggressively and, crucially, proactively.
So it's not just defense anymore.
Exactly. This transition meant recognizing that cyber capability wasn't just a protective measure, but a strategic tool capable of projecting power and altering conflict outcomes.
Let's outline the concrete institutional steps taken during this time. The source points to two specific organizational structures introduced that formalize this priority: the formation of dedicated cyber cells and the introduction of sophisticated digital surveillance systems.
The formation of dedicated cyber cells within the military and intelligence apparatus is the key indicator of strategic commitment. This was not a side project.
It was core business.
It was. It meant creating highly specialized, heavily funded, and high-priority units focused solely on digital operations, both protective and intelligence gathering. These cells were staffed by elite technical talent, they centralized expertise, and they received the budgetary resources necessary for the rapid development of custom digital tools and advanced training. They institutionalized the concept of the digital soldier.
How did these cyber cells interact with the traditional military structure? I mean, were they embedded in existing intelligence units, or did they operate as standalone units reporting directly to high command?
The analyses suggest they were tightly integrated into the existing command and control structure. And this is key because it moved digital expertise out of the periphery and right into the heart of strategic decision-making. This integration ensured that digital intelligence and capabilities could influence immediate operational planning, whether for conventional conflict support or for independent, non-kinetic operations.
And the digital surveillance systems. How did those represent an escalation from the simple SIGINT capabilities established in the early 2000s?
Those systems represent the institutionalization of the intelligence gleaned from the earlier SIGINT efforts, but on a massive scale. Digital surveillance moved beyond merely intercepting signals to continuously analyzing vast quantities of digital data network traffic, mass communications, and system vulnerabilities on a state-level scale.
So panoramic awareness.
A continuous panoramic digital awareness needed to preempt or respond to major threats. It allowed for deep pattern analysis that could isolate potential threats long before they even materialized.
So if the earlier stage was about defense, this stage seems clearly about intelligence domination and preemption. This is where information warfare officially became a strategic priority, correct?
That is precisely the defining characteristic of this era. Information warfare, in this context, involves using information technology to gain an advantage over an adversary, often by degrading their information systems or leveraging their data against them. By elevating it to a strategic priority, the leadership signaled that digital dominance was now considered as critical to national security as conventional military strength.
And that would require doctrinal changes, new training regimes, and significantly higher investment in R&D.
All of the above. It means digital operations were integrated directly into high-level defense plans.
So if it moved up the chain of command, what are the inherent risks the source material identifies with putting such high-stakes digital power, the capacity for immediate infiltration and manipulation, in the hands of traditional military leaders who might not be natively digital?
That's a highly perceptive question, and the source material implicitly addresses the risks of integrating such new power. The primary risk is often escalation control and unintended consequences.
Right.
Digital operations, especially offense, can be highly deniable, which is an advantage. But they also lack the clear rules of engagement common to kinetic warfare. So the establishment of dedicated cells reporting directly up the chain was the attempt to mitigate this risk, ensuring that digital actions were tightly controlled, deliberate, and aligned with overall strategic goals, preventing rogue operations or accidental escalation due to technological overreach.
And what was the most crucial lesson learned or realized during this strategic shift? The source material gives us that powerful phrase, the unseen front line.
The most crucial realization was that the digital domain had officially become Pakistan's unseen front line. This phrase captures the intangible yet vital nature of the conflict space. Unlike a physical border where troop movements are visible, this front line is constantly being probed, contested, and crossed without any visible kinetic action.
The implication there is profound. It means you are perpetually at war, or at least in a state of high readiness for a conflict that may never involve a single bullet.
That's it.
The unseen frontline implies a perpetual state of vigilance, requiring a complete reorganization of military tempo and doctrine. What are the practical implications of a 247 digital war on military budgets and personnel retention, according to the analysis?
Well, the analyses highlight that the human capital challenge is immense. Traditional military training doesn't suffice. You need to attract and retain highly skilled programmers and analysts who often command very high salaries in the private sector.
Of course.
Furthermore, the operational tempo is relentless. The infrastructure must be maintained and defended constantly. This necessitates continuous, massive reinvestment in training and technology just to maintain parity, let alone gain superiority. The unseen front line demands a different kind of military commitment, one focused on continuous, often hidden engagement.
That establishes the strategic intent and the philosophical shift. Now we move to the culmination of this effort, the creation of the unified command structure designed to execute this new priority.
Right. And the establishment of the Unified Cyber Command is presented in the sources as the culmination of the 2 decades of strategic development we've just discussed. It takes the concepts of the unseen frontline and strategic priority and solidifies them into a formal, unified, dedicated operational unit capable of executing complex multi-domain operations.
And the sources highlight the specific architect involved here, Field Marshal Syed Asim Munir. Highlighting the role of a key figure in establishing this command really emphasizes the top-down commitment required for such a massive strategic pivot. This wasn't an accident. This was an intentional act of statecraft.
Absolutely. Naming the architect signifies that this was a deliberate institutional effort championed by the highest levels of military leadership, which provided the necessary political and budgetary weight. The Cyber Command is the physical, or rather the organizational manifestation of the digital fortress concept, a single operational structure responsible for the entire digital defense and offense posture of the state.
Okay, let's define the command's core mandate. What exactly is this digital fortress designed to defend against the integrated threat of hybrid warfare? We have three highly critical areas listed.
The Cyber Command is designed as a cohesive shield, specifically mandated to defend. First, state systems. Second, military networks. And third, financial infrastructure. These three areas together, they represent national sovereignty in the 21st century.
Okay, so state systems would encompass governance, public services, massive data repositories, everything from national ID databases to tax collection.
Yeah.
And disrupting those creates internal chaos and undermines public trust.
Correct. The integrity of the state apparatus is paramount. If essential services like communication infrastructure or energy grids can be disabled remotely, national function ceases, which leads to immediate destabilization. Protecting these systems ensures political and social stability, which is a key target in hybrid warfare.
And military networks are obviously crucial for command, control, and intelligence capabilities. The key distinction here, I think, is the unified approach across all branches of the military.
Yes. The unified approach ensures standardization of security protocols and prevents fragmentation. Before this command, different military branches might have developed their own digital defenses, creating weak points at the junctures. Unification establishes clear protocols for digital engagement and defense across the entire armed forces, preventing a critical point of failure in C2 command and control.
And focusing on financial infrastructure, that shows a deep understanding of modern strategic vulnerability. Paralyzing a nation's economy is perhaps the cleanest, most effective way to wage war without firing a single shot.
That's the critical link. Modern warfare is holistic. If an adversary can successfully compromise access to the global banking system, halt stock exchanges, or paralyze critical national payment systems like SWIFT, the economic collapse can be immediate and catastrophic. The Cyber Command's role in protecting the financial infrastructure ensures national economic resilience against digitally driven economic warfare, a core component of maintaining national stability and sovereignty.
Now let's get into the technical specifics that make this fortress unique. The source material highlights some cutting-edge technology being deployed. Tell us about the technological edge this fortress uses, starting with AI.
The sources specifically mention AI-driven threat detection, blockchain verification, and cyber rapid response teams. These three components illustrate a move past conventional digital defense systems towards sophisticated, automated capabilities.
AI-driven threat detection. That implies moving beyond manually updated virus definitions or simple static firewalls. How does AI specifically enhance the ability to find and neutralize threats in real time?
It's a move from simple pattern matching to proactive behavioral analysis. An AI can analyze network traffic at speeds and scales far exceeding human capability, and it can identify anomalous behavior, not just known malware signatures, but subtle changes in user behavior, data flow rates, or communication patterns that signify an attack is underway or being prepared.
So it's predictive.
It uses machine learning models to correlate these patterns across disparate military and state systems, predicting and spotting zero-day threats that are still evolving or custom-made. This speeds up detection from potentially hours to milliseconds, which is really the necessary timeline for survival in cyberspace.
Blockchain verification is a very specific modern technology to mention in a military context. Our original explanation was maybe too brief. So why would secure distributed ledger technology be superior to a traditional centralized database for military and financial resilience?
That's where the power of immutability comes in. A traditional centralized database is a single point of failure. If an attacker gains root access, they can manipulate or erase records without detection. Blockchain verification, being a decentralized ledger, provides an unchangeable, cryptographically secured record of transactions or data history.
So it's tamper-proof.
In a military context, this ensures data integrity. For example, if a critical system log, a chain of command instruction, or even logistics information regarding weapons deployment is secured using a distributed ledger, it becomes virtually impossible for a malicious actor to secretly tamper with that record. The network itself acts as the verifier, flagging any inconsistency immediately. It ensures trust and verifies the authenticity of critical operations in an environment where manipulation is the primary threat.
So it's about building these tamper-proof critical systems, preventing the enemy from sowing digital doubt about the authenticity of orders or financial records.
Exactly. It adds a critical layer of structural resilience, ensuring that even if one node is compromised, the integrity of the total data set remains verifiable by the consensus of the rest of the network.
And the cyber rapid response teams. They sound like the elite operational arm designed for immediate engagement.
They are the operational arm of the defense, mandated for high-speed counterattack and mitigation. Their role is to contain, mitigate, and eject intruders the moment the AI systems identify an attack. In cyber conflict, speed is everything, the time between detection and decisive action.
The first responders.
Right. These teams are highly trained not just to fix the damage, but to analyze the attack vector in real time, implement immediate surgical countermeasures, and ensure operational continuity. They turn detection into immediate, decisive action before the attacker can achieve their objective.
So if we connect all these technological and organizational elements, the establishment of this unified cyber command is framed as Pakistan's explicit shield against what?
It is explicitly framed as the shield against hybrid war.
Let's elaborate on that. How does hybrid warfare integrate digital disruption, and how does this doctrine provide a comprehensive answer?
Hybrid warfare is conflict conducted through a blend of conventional military actions, unconventional tactics, economic coercion, information warfare, and, crucially, digital disruption, all operating simultaneously. The source material emphasizes that the threat isn't just tanks crossing a border.
It's everything at once.
It's a coordinated attack, simultaneously disabling your power grid via digital intrusion, paralyzing your financial market, and launching deepfake disinformation campaigns to erode public confidence.
So the Cyber Command's mission is to counter the integrated nature of the threat with an integrated defense.
Precisely. The command unifies the defense across these disparate domains, protecting the power grid, state systems, securing the military's communication, military networks, and defending the banks, financial infrastructure, under one strategic umbrella. It ensures a coordinated technological response to an integrated multi-domain threat.
And it must have protocols for escalation.
It does. Furthermore, it implies a doctrinal linkage. The source material suggests that the command coordinates its defense of critical civilian infrastructure with potential simultaneous conventional conflict, establishing protocols for escalation control in the digital realm, knowing when a digital response is appropriate versus when a digital response must support a kinetic operation. This holistic vision is what defines the digital fortress.
This marks the full transition to an operational, dedicated digital force. And this sophisticated structure allows them to move from simple defense to adopting the comprehensive strategy required for true dominance.
Which brings us to the doctrine itself. This is the central strategic framework we must fully unpack. Pakistan's modern strategy is defined by a three-front model. This doctrine articulates how the unified cyber command operationalizes its mission, moving beyond simple resilience into active deterrence and offensive capability.
Okay, let's dedicate our deepest dive to breaking down each of these three fronts. They represent a comprehensive, full-spectrum approach to achieving digital superiority. We'll start with front one, cyber defense.
Front one, cyber defense. This is the foundational, continuous effort. It's analogous to maintaining a fortified border wall. The goal is straightforward: protection and resilience.
So what are the specific mechanisms and targets that define this defensive effort beyond just general system security?
The focus is highly operational, protecting networks, national data integrity, and military grids from exploitation. This involves institutionalizing resilience through layered architecture. The source material emphasizes the implementation of rigorous encryption standards across the board, securing industrial control systems, the ICS that manage critical infrastructure, and crucially, creating redundancy and failover systems in data storage.
So it's about making sure that a localized attack doesn't cascade.
Exactly. The focus is on ensuring that a successful localized attack doesn't lead to systemic cascading failure. This defense front is about being inherently resilient and difficult to penetrate, guaranteeing operational continuity even under stress.
So cyber defense is the institutionalized, everyday vigilance that keeps the lights on and the data safe, making the nation structurally sound against persistent threats.
Absolutely. It is the necessary prerequisite. If your own digital foundation is brittle, any attempt at deterrence or offense is a strategic risk, as the enemy can simply bypass your actions by exploiting your internal vulnerabilities. Defense guarantees the platform upon which the entire doctrine rests.
Okay, moving to front two, cyber deterrence. This represents a significant escalation. The goal shifts from merely protection to monitoring and countermeasures, the concept of strategic signaling.
Deterrence is psychological and strategic. The fundamental concept is making the cost of attacking too high for the adversary to bear. This front utilizes the extensive intelligence capabilities established earlier signals intelligence and digital monitoring to observe threats continuously, not just for defense, but for strategic communication.
How does advanced monitoring effectively translate into deterrence? I mean, what message are they trying to send?
The message is, we see you, and we can retaliate effectively. By visibly and continuously tracking adversary activities, the Cyber Command can send signals, sometimes explicit, often implicit, through public disclosures of minor attack origins, that their actions are known, monitored, and their capabilities are mapped.
So it removes the element of surprise.
It dramatically reduces the element of surprise and raises the probability of the attacker being exposed or neutralized. Furthermore, this front is responsible for implementing active, non-destructive countermeasures to dissuade attacks.
Let's delve deeper into those countermeasures. You mentioned honeypots before. What other specific non-kinetic tools fall under the deterrence mandate to raise the adversary's cost of entry?
Well, deterrence tools are designed to consume the adversary's resources without causing kinetic damage. So besides honeypots, which draw in attackers to reveal their methods deterrence, often include sophisticated spoofing techniques. This means actively injecting deceptive data into enemy surveillance streams, feeding the adversary false intelligence, or employing complex obfuscation methods that make it impossible for the attacker to reliably locate or identify their intended target within the network architecture.
So it's about confusion.
It's about manipulation and exposure. The goal is ensuring the adversary knows their preparation and actions carry a high probability of detection, waste, or failure. Deterrence succeeds when the enemy believes they will lose more resources or strategic advantage than they could possibly gain from an intrusion.
So defense is resilience, deterrence is signaling capability and raising the entry barrier through confusion and intelligence exposure. That brings us to front three, cyber offense. The goal here is unambiguous. Digital disruption. This is where the projection of digital power happens.
This is the sharp end of the doctrine. It's the capacity for digital projection of power to achieve strategic military and political objectives. If defense is the shield and deterrence is the warning, offense is the spear. This front is focused on leveraging digital means to achieve strategic objectives against an adversary, potentially ahead of or concurrent with conventional military action.
And the specific capabilities listed are highly advanced: AI-powered infiltration and digital disruption of enemy networks. How does AI specifically enable this offensive posture?
AI-powered infiltration implies developing tools that can operate with a degree of autonomy. These tools can autonomously search for, exploit, and penetrate vulnerabilities in enemy systems, adapting their approach in real time based on the network's defenses or changes in countermeasures.
So it's faster than a human hacker.
It moves beyond human speed hacking, where penetration might take days or weeks of manual effort, to machine speed penetration. This significantly reduces the timeline required to gain deep, persistent access to critical enemy infrastructure, like command systems or logistics chains. It increases the stealth, speed, and sophistication of the attack itself.
And digital disruption. What level of damage are we talking about here doctrinally?
Digital disruption can range across a spectrum of hostile activities, which must be clearly defined for doctrinal purposes. At the lower end, you have denial of service, or DOS attacks, that temporarily shut down critical services or information dissemination. At the high end, you are talking about highly targeted destructive malware aimed at permanently crippling infrastructure, such as zeroing out databases, corrupting industrial control systems for energy infrastructure, or destroying command systems critical for enemy mobilization.
The objective is to degrade the adversary's ability to coordinate, mobilize, and function effectively during a conflict. It makes this a decisive theater of war.
It does.
This three-front doctrine, defense, deterrence, offense, is incredibly comprehensive. It means the strategy covers the full spectrum of digital conflict, from protecting internal networks to possessing the credible threat of digital retaliation.
That's the key synthesis. It is a structure designed not just to survive, but to operate and dominate in the digital environment. And the source material articulates the ultimate objective of this entire complex doctrine in a simple declarative statement: to maintain superiority in the digital domain.
Superiority. That's a strong word.
Hmm.
It implies more than just parity or security. It suggests an ambition to be the dominant, leading force in that specific sphere of conflict, particularly against regional adversaries.
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, seeking superiority implies two major strategic commitments. Firstly, they believe the digital domain will be the decisive, game-changing factor in future conflicts. And secondly, they are committing sustained, non-negotiable resources to ensure they are always technologically ahead in this space.
That's a huge commitment.
Maintaining superiority requires constant, highly expensive innovation, continuous proprietary research and development, and intense training to ensure the human capital remains sharper and faster than the evolving threat landscape. It's a perpetual, resource-intensive strategic commitment.
It sounds like this strategy is fundamentally about future-proofing national power. It means the battle for technological dominance must be waged continuously, not just during declared conflicts. The three-front model is a mechanism designed to achieve and maintain that digital superiority.
And what's fascinating here is how clearly the strategy maps out the required technological investments and institutional structures needed to support those three distinct operational objectives. It's the blueprint for comprehensive digital militarization, integrating highly technical, non-kinetic capabilities directly into the core military doctrine.
So let's recap. We've traveled from the conceptual shift where data became the ultimate source of power through the early foundational work in the 2000s focused on resilience.
To the strategic prioritization under Musharraf, and finally, the establishment of the Unified Cyber Command under Field Marshal Quaid-e-Azam of Meer, which executes the sophisticated three-front doctrine.
It is a remarkable and rapid timeline of military adaptation.
It is. We've witnessed the institutional evolution from rudimentary signals intelligence and basic secure communications to deploying advanced AI-driven threat detection, implementing highly resilient blockchain verification, and fielding specialized rapid response teams within a unified digital fortress structure.
The journey culminated in the explicit adoption of the three-front model: cyber defense for structural resilience and continuity, cyber deterrence for strategic signaling and cost imposition, and cyber offense for digital projection of power. The singular, uncompromising goal is superiority in the digital domain.
And this all leads back to that powerful concluding reflection found in the source material. Battles of tomorrow will not be won by tanks alone, but by code, satellites, signals, and intelligence. The preparation was rooted in the military leadership, embracing the future, shifting massive resources, and dedicating institutional effort to this unseen front line.
The definition of national strength has broadened irrevocably.
It has.
It's a clear indication that for nations adopting this doctrine, kinetic force still matters. But it is now intrinsically tied to, and often critically dependent upon, digital dominance and the ability to operate effectively within the electromagnetic spectrum.
And this raises an important and necessary question for you, the listener, to continue exploring. Given that the explicit strategic goal of this comprehensive doctrine is superiority in the digital domain, what does that imply about the necessary level of global interconnected digital infrastructure required to sustain such a strategy? This cannot be achieved in isolation.
That is a truly massive, long-term operational commitment. Maintaining superiority in a field where technology evolves every 18 months means a military can't rely solely on defense sector internal development. What specific national industries must be leveraged and perhaps subsidized or integrated beyond the military structure in areas like advanced telecommunications, fundamental software engineering research, and even domestic semiconductor development to maintain that constant technological edge required for digital superiority.
If the definitive battle is fought in code, the entire national technological ecosystem becomes part of the defense and offense apparatus. That synergy and the effort required to maintain that technological lead against accelerating global innovation is the real long-term strategic challenge posed by this comprehensive doctrine. The question is no longer just how they fight, but how they innovate at a national level to support their digital fortress.
The profound thought to end on, suggesting that the line between military research and civilian industry has effectively vanished in the age of digital fortress doctrines. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Pakistan's strategic pivot to cyberspace.